Greetings from Paris. We are at Médecins Sans Frontières. Back in the States we know him as Doctors Without Borders, and I'm pleased to have Michael Neuman on the show. He is the Deputy Program Manager. Thank you for your time, Michael.
Thank you for listening.
If you could tell us a little bit for our Bay Area listeners, what is Doctors Without Borders?
MSF, as it's called with its French acronym, Doctors Without Borders, is a medical humanitarian organization working in countries in crisis where population suffers from consequences of war, natural disasters, or epidemics.
Okay.
It works in around 70 countries worldwide, employs around 25,000 people. We were created in France in 1971. But now MSF has become an international organization, including 19 branches throughout the world.
And folks, just to let you know, in the Bay Area, the work that they've done has been recognized worldwide. 1999 was a Nobel Peace Prize for their efforts. There are many countries affected by war. How does MSF decide where to go?
Well, that's a good question, Tim, and it's not always easy to respond. MSF is a large organization now. It has a budget of over $500 million. It's able to deploy means, humanitarian assistance rapidly in many corners of the world affected by war. The idea is to help the most affected people in the most affected areas. The idea is to cover most of the areas affected by war and again natural disaster. We are working a lot in Africa. And most of our projects are in Africa now, for instance in the Sudan, in the Darfur region for instance, but not only, also in the southern region of Sudan, in the Congo, which are the two largest countries, which are also the two largest projects for MSF. There are a few countries where we are not sometimes able to work.
Oh, I see.
For instance, in Afghanistan, we haven't been able to work in Afghanistan since 2004 and the murder of our 5 colleagues that actually marked the end of a 25-year project in Afghanistan.
25 years in Afghanistan.
And there are many countries where we cannot act because of the security condition or act under very difficult constraints, such as Somalia, for instance. In Iraq, there is a situation where we have not been able to deploy international teams since the inception of the conflict in 2003, but we are able to work through helping local doctors performing the daily works. We're also around the Iraqi conflict working in Jordan, in the Kurd region.
In a large scale, you do try to influence situations as a group. To see if the conflict can be resolved. Is that right? Or is it more if people are not getting aid, you try to help there?
I think you're very right with the latter. What we call the principle of impartiality is very important to us. It's actually paramount to the work we do. It means that the assistance we provide will be provided based on the needs only of the people. Which means that whether you're tall or small, or Christian or Jew or Muslim or black or white or affiliated to a political group or another, you shall be entitled to receive the same kind of assistance and the same quality of assistance. What we try to influence maybe is those who bear the responsibility for the suffering of the people, so that they either stop committing crimes, or that we advocate for those who bear the responsibility to assist the people, meaning the states or the authority, to actually let us do the work we need to do, or even better, to be able to provide themselves the assistance they should be providing. We sometimes lobby for the different states, governments, to actually supply medical assistance or water or shelter to the population they have under the responsibility. We do not wish to influence the world on the larger scale. We are not a development organization. We do not aim to change behavior of the people or the type of policy of the government or the way they are governed. The framework of the work we do is the Geneva Conventions, the international humanitarian law, the fact that there are laws to war and that actors to conflict are supposed to abide to these laws.
So the Geneva Convention is the guiding...
It's the guiding principle of our action for the most part. There are a few areas where we've been at the forefront of changes, but that's most notably in the area of health. For instance, in relation to the treatment of malaria, through pushing in countries where we were working already for protocol change in order to put pressure on governments so that people are treated for malaria with the relevant treatment. Another area where we've been throughout pretty active is the HIV/AIDS epidemic, where we've started treating ARV HIV patients in Africa in the early 2000s, at a time where it was very unfashionable and deemed risky and dangerous and not efficient. We've been able to show that it was possible to provide treatment to HIV patients in poor settings with extremely good medical results. Challenges are always ahead of us. It's difficult. We don't have a long history. Availability of drugs is difficult. But now money is there. Things have been changing, and not only because of the work of MSF, but probably also partly due to the work of MSF of putting pressure on international actors so that they do realize there was a crisis that needed to be answered.
Michael, as I understand it, you're not a physician, but you have field experience with this group, and you got yourself a start in 1999 in Kosovo, is that right?
Yeah, indeed. I was actually an exception, fresh out of the university. There are many non-medical staff working with MSF, with the group. About 2/3 of the staff comprises of physicians and paramedics. In addition to that, we need non-medical staff, administrators, logisticians, to kind of like run the show behind the scene, make sure that the train get on time, the planes are filled with the right stuff, the budget is controlled. I'd like to remind your listeners that virtually 100% of the budget of MSF currently comes from private funds. Private donors who actually donate. Well, virtually 100, it depends a bit of the different branches of MSF. I think worldwide it nears the 90% now.
Okay, 90% privately funded.
Privately funded, which gives MSF the ability to basically go anywhere it wants, again based on the needs and not on pressure of any type of groups or governments or UN or international organization, etc.
Exactly.
And it's a very core part of the identity of our group, the financial independence and the political independence. But let's go back a bit to what you were asking earlier. We need physicians, surgeons, nurses, etc. But you have also to realize that a lot of the people we work with in the countries we work are, you know, drivers and cook and logisticians and, you know, accountant and many other type of profiles. So there are many options for many people with different professional background and educational background to join MSF, Doctors Without Borders, if they wish to do so.
Well, listeners, again, this is a group that is able to get going with just really a moment's notice, and they have perfected what they do to such a point that they can have an entire operating theater in the size of a small conference table. An obstetrics kit could actually be the size of a small file drawer. So they've really compacted down the science of medicine, and they're able to deliver it. Well, final question for you, Michael. What really matters?
It's important that you know, there are so many places that the public don't know about, where people, civilians, are absolutely forgotten, that there are people that do try to stay close to them, that proximity to the people in suffering is important. Try to help people that otherwise are really neglected by authorities or greater politics in general.
Well, thank you much for your time, Michael.